All right, so we've been talking about state purposes. This is the State Purposes live lecture series, and we just found out why a live lecture series has some risk. And actually, although risk is something that is in the proximate location to what we are going to be talking about today, as you can see here, optimized risk taking or exposure to risk, it's not exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We finished potential. We went up and down and around and around. We talked about it for a million episodes. And today we are going to focus straight into agendas. What do I mean agendas? Let's start from the top. So remember, state purposes. What are we talking about? We're envisioning purposes that motivate or can motivate. What does that mean? Envision purposes that motivate or can motivate. What's the context of this statement? What does it mean? Purposes that motivate. All right, so you wake up in the morning and what? What is it that pushes you out of your bed and into the cold? What is it that pushes you out of your home and into the wild? What is it that pushes you away from your comfort zone and into the dangerous? What is it that you want? What is it that drives you? All right, so those are purposes that motivate. In general, what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify purposes in your life, purposes at work, purposes, and then we want to actually look at facets. So what are the things in your life? What are the things in my life? What are the things that are happening in our lives? And then what is the correlation? And the argument, I suppose, is that we want to envision purposes that motivate, which means that if you're a manager, then you want to understand the motivation of the people on your team. You also want to understand the motivation of the project. You want to understand the motivation of the organization. You want to understand the motivation of the customers. And then you are going to define facets. And you are going to make sure that you have some facets. You have something that is going to be correlating with those core motivations. If you're able to do that, then likely you're going to get some traction. All right, so let's begin. Let's go back to my course. So the course that I sell on my website, it's called the Endeavor Cycle Introduction, Iron Out Those Brain Wrinkles. And you've seen this many times. I just added something today. It's this sentence here: making, informing, implementing decisions. Making, informing, implementing decisions. The longer that you teach something, the more times that you explain something, the better that you yourself understand what you are saying. As you can see down here, we have Lisa, our good friend Lisa Simpson, and she is our representative for the executive or the manager. And the executive and manager are the representative for this concept called making decisions. How are you going to make a decision? The decision has to be informed. You see, informing. Before you make the decision has to be informed by thinking frameworks and data analysis. You talk to the people who have the data, and then you talk to the people who have the thinking models and thinking frameworks, and then you can make a decision. Finally, you need to implement the decision. So after you have made the decision, then you're going to pass along the decision to the people who are going to follow the orders and the rules. They are going to implement that decision. So that's the concept: making, informing, implementing decisions. I think that's really the key about plans, making agendas. But what about this concept: gain, goals, purpose, incentive, direction? One way to think about that is the concept of gaining a goal. What is a goal? A goal is something way off in the distance. The goal is to reach the top of the mountain outside this window. I can see it. It's right there. I can see that it's going to take how many steps. It's going to take how many hours. It's going to take how many bottles of water to get from A to B. And then you have purpose. Purpose is it's like behind you, right? Now, I find it odd, actually, that this whole table is about categories of purposes. And in the center of the entire section of text, we have the word purpose again. To gain goals, purpose. So what does it mean to gain purpose? I think one benefit of you going through this live lecture series is that you will begin to understand the purposes that are driving you. You'll be able to pinpoint them. You'll be able to say, hey, look, I'm the kind of guy that likes to maintain or enhance wellness. I mean, like, if I look around, it's not necessarily true. Like, I spend a lot of money on, like, supplements and doing research about, like, what kind of supplements can help me to give my brain the amount of nutrition it needs so that it can focus and have energy. I go running 4 kilometers every night. But other than that, like, it's not like I'm not driven to enhance financial wellness. I'm not driven to enhance various types of wellness. I'm kind of like normal. Like, I'm just kind of like, yeah, good, yeah, fantastic. I stay healthy, but, life, enjoy, learn, grow. I'm pretty relaxed. Me and Gordy Gord over there. Gordon. He's sleeping. He still has another 30 minutes before the run. Attain certification, other recognition. Like, when I got my undergraduate degree in China, was it the attainment of a certification? No, it was more like social pressure. I mean, I love Chinese. I studied Chinese law just to learn Chinese. And then, like, I finished my degree. Was it to attain the certificate or some kind of recognition? Well, not really. It was more like just like it was an obstacle. Like, how do you get a job? You have to go to school. And then you finish school, then you can get the job. If you go and apply for the job, they ask you, did you go to school? You say no. Then they say, no, you can't have the job until you go to school. It was like, so it was nothing to do with attaining certification. And like, how many other certificates do I have? Enhancing reputation. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things I could do. So I've talked to quite a few people about my YouTube channel, and I've done like a lot of research for how to improve it. And I came to the conclusion that the primary reason that I'm doing the YouTube channel is to improve my ability to speak. How do you turn that into an adjective? Ad hocly? And not an adjective, an adverb. And like, just jump in front of the camera and start talking. Because over the long period of time, jumping in front of a camera and talking, you're going to expose what you are, who you are, what you know, what you don't know, what you represent. That's just part of what it means to speak in public continually. And that's what I'm practicing. For example, like recently, we've seen our good buddies, Harris and Trump and Trudeau and Poilievre, and they have to speak in public. They appear on podcasts, they appear on news shows, and they are asked all kinds of questions. And they have to be able to answer. They have to give some kind of answer. I've noticed that they generally don't answer the question that's been asked. But like, you have to build a persona. Like, who am I? How am I going to react when people ask me questions? How do I want to represent myself? Do I want to look like that recent Fox interview with Harris, where she's basically like, she just got beat up, right? Like the guy was asking her questions and just beating her up, and it was pretty crazy. And I mean, eventually she was like, I'm getting beat up. Like, she went kind of crazy. And then you look at Trump's interview over at the Chicago, some kind of Chicago business forum. And I don't know, he was like, the guy was trying to beat him up. And then Trump was like, no, that you got that wrong. No, this is wrong. No, like, he was like, he looked intelligent. He looked like he belonged in the room. He looked like he could manage things. He looked like he knew what he was doing. So those are two very different interviews, two very different expressions of how people could do things. Although the recent situation with Trump listening to 30 minutes of music instead of talking, I don't know what that was all about. It's just in the news right now, and I don't know why. So there's lots of weird things that are happening, but the most important thing is that a person is going to have to get used to the process of speaking in public. And at some point, we don't choose our leaders from who is the best leader. We choose our leaders from who is willing to speak in public, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to improve my leadership skills by practicing the process of speaking in public. Now, is that enhancing reputation? No. Is that attaining certification? No. Maybe it's a little bit about like recognition, but for me, it's about gaining the skill of public speaking. You see, everything that I do, like the introvert, the engineer, it's all about this one: deploy, gain, and create resources, methods, skills, and knowledge. And then, like, if you think about Trump, he's all about ally with, create entities, relationships, or activities. He's always talking about relationships. He's always talking about activities. He's always talking about entities. That's like everything on his mind. It's like completely focused on this area. All right, so when we talk about purpose, it's like, what drives you? What are the underlying desires, passions, appetite? It's about appetite. What is it that you are hungry for? And so I think that is what's pushing you from behind. All right, so the goal is the mountain in front of you. The purpose is the thing that's pushing you from behind. Like, why would I climb the mountain anyways? I could see the goal is to reach the top of the mountain. Yes, but why? Why? Purpose. I have some reason why I need to get to the top of that mountain. And then a sense of direction, it means like, do we have a route? Do we figure out how we're going to get there? What is this? So what are we talking about here? Let's move down a little bit, because in this we know, what did we learn? Making, informing, implementing decisions, right? Making, informing, implementing decisions. Getting a goal. When you decide what the goal is, that's a decision. The purpose is the basis, what's pushing you toward that. And then the sense of direction is also a decision. So here we have these purposes. You see all of this chunk of text. These are all of the things which are pushing us, that are pushing us forward. And as those things are pushing us, we have to make decisions. We have to decide in which direction will we go and how will we get there. Now in my course, I continue with this whole idea, right? Making and implementing decisions. That's the business cycle. To be in business, you're in a huddle, and then you run the play, and then you're in the huddle, then you run the play. What does that mean? We make a decision, then we implement the decision. It's a circle. And then, so what's the decision based on? The decision's based on this concept of potential, which is what we've been talking about. The potential down here is like, okay, so who do we have to work with? What's motivating us? And how are we empowered by the resources which are around us? And that's all in here. Is it desirable? Is it possible? Once you've found your vision, once you've found something that's desirable, once you have a goal, something that's desirable and it's possible, well, how do you know if it's possible? Then you're going into this concept of make a plan, right? So we're into agendas, forming an agenda. The first question that you want to ask is the hypothesis viable? Is it possible? And in order to know if it's possible or not, then you have to go into the case studies, the evidence, the historical data. Is this a proven strategy? There are proven strategies for how to succeed on YouTube. I could craft my messages in a different way in order to hit those notes that the audience desires. And I don't know. I could shift my message to some extent and capture a larger audience. But at this point, I'm testing a strategy. I'm proving a hypothesis. All right, now, the question is always about vision. Did I actually write down a vision here? No, it's just an idea. What is your vision? What is my vision? What is a vision? And then here, we have the 4-part endeavor cycle. The question is, what do you want to do? Again, where's the vision? it's not explicitly written. You have to make the decision yourself. Then we go into this thing called the force field analysis. And look, we have something called a desired state. Exactly. That's the vision, right? That's the goal. But it's not written. We don't know what that thing actually is, because, we're just talking about the concept of what is a vision. Then we go into the 6-step endeavor cycle, and it's the same thing. Here, what do you want to do? So the first time in my course when I actually give an example of a vision is in like the 6th or the 7th video, maybe the 8th video. And I used the example of a football player. Oddly enough, a couple days ago, I went to our newly built soccer field, and I kicked the pants off of a bunch of 10-year-old boys. So what happened was, over the last year, I've been jogging 4 kilometers every night with this damn dog. And about 2 months ago, I started going to the city center. This is a town of like 2,000 people. It's a village. Anyways, there's like this little cement wall. I bought a soccer ball. I started kicking the ball at the wall, like literally just kicking it with the right leg, kicking it with the left leg, kicking it with the right leg. And I've been doing that like pretty much every day for over a month. Why? I think maybe because I taught this so many times. Because if you want to become a really good soccer player, you have to have physical fitness, you have to have good ball handling, you have to have spatial awareness. This comes from the concept of deliberate practice from Anders Ericsson. I think this is a video from Amazon. Anyways, I use the example of soccer. Now, if we talk about ball handling, then speed, control, strength, quickness, these are all very, very important. And so I designed 2 different exercises. One is to dribble, and one is to shoot. Or it could be pass, but in general, the one with dribble, this dang dog, you know what he does? So he actually tries to take the ball from me. And so like many, many times a week, like 3 or 4 times a week, I'm like dribbling the ball and like the dog tries to take it away. It's so crazy. Anyways, I got pretty good at dribbling from playing with the dog. And then I got pretty good at shooting from practicing kicking the ball at the wall. And then I got pretty good at endurance from running 4 kilometers every day for a whole year. So suddenly, the first time I'm walking around the South Park. There's a new football stadium. I go inside, there's a bunch of kids, and they're like, come on, let's play. So they call me American, and I'm like, no, I'm Canadian, I'm not American. But anyways, what's the difference, right? So I get in there, and I said, which team is losing? And then it was that team. They're losing by 1,000,000 points. So I go on the losing team, and within like 10 minutes, I scored 5 points. Basically, every time I touched the ball, they couldn't stop me. But they're only 10-year-old kids. So anyways, next time I'm thinking maybe I'll probably try to play against the 12-year-olds, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if I can beat a 12-year-old kid. Anyways, you can see the vision, right? The vision is to become a better and better soccer player. And then we break it down into the categories. And then we break that down into subcategories. And then we break that down into elements. And then we design an exercise in order to improve the element. And then the result is we become a better football player or soccer player. All right, so that's the first example. Now, when we go into Tom's book, there's one model here where he takes those same 3 categories. These are called the endeavor elements: potential, agendas, and effects. He breaks those down into 9 different categories. We've spent a lot of time looking at potential. Now we're moving up to the area of agendas. And in the first part of agendas, it's about making assumptions. Of course, this is a little bit different when I talk about my endeavor cycle. So the endeavor cycle here, what do you want to do? In most cases, what you're going to do is you're going to recognize the outcomes. Either you're going to recognize the outcomes your personal outcomes, the things which you have done in your company, or you're going to recognize the outcomes of other companies, and then you're going to compare those. After you've recognized the outcomes, you're going to have a whole bunch of data. Then you're going to need to take inventory, which is going to give you a whole bunch of more data. And those two things added together, the outcomes from the past and your inventory, is going to give you basically a map of the terrain. And that's when we start to get inventive. We try to figure out, how is it that we're going to get to the top of this mountain? So for example, the outcome is that only 7 out of 10 people get to the top of the mountain. And this is the routes that they take, and this is the different conditions. Okay, so taking inventory, it's like, what are the conditions of the hikers? What's the equipment that they had? What time of year did they go up there? And all the different factors. So from these two boxes, we can basically create the map of terrain. And after we've created the map of terrain, then we use our inventiveness and we plan a route. All right, so there's two different ways to look at this plan. When we talk about forming an agenda, like the goal is like getting to the top of the mountain, right? So that's the first one, gaining goal. I want to get to the top of the mountain. But the sense of direction, I think maybe that's the actual plan. And in order to, before you can get to that plan, before you can actually create the plan, you want to question assumptions. And we can see that in the model here, because Tom says that we have to make these assumptions. Now, Tom has another checklist. Remember, we've been working with the checklist called state purposes here. And he has another checklist called state assumptions. And I want to show you a little bit of a cheat sheet. When we look at his question assumptions, state assumptions checklist, I get the feeling that he's mainly talking about 3 concepts. Up until this point in our video today, I've been talking about this concept about making decisions. And how do we inform that decision? Informing a decision can be broken down into 2 parts. The first part we call create knowledge. How well did you evaluate the quality of the data? And how well did you evaluate the usefulness of the data? Quality of data, usefulness of data. So that's, I think, recognizing outcomes. That could also be taking inventory. So these 2 boxes, it's going to create a whole bunch of data. And the question is, the data that we got, is it quality data? Meaning, is it correct? And also, is it useful? Meaning, does it apply to our specific situation? All right, is it good or bad data? Is there a problem with your data? If there aren't any problems with your data, you have enough data, you have the right data, it's useful for your project. All right, so then the next thing we want to do is to create insight. The question is, what principles, knowledge, and insight did you apply in the decision-making process, which is called the basis of consideration? Was it a problem with the understanding of the data? Was it a problem with the selecting of the data? Or was it a problem with the prioritization of the data? And then finally, we move to making decisions. To what extent were you confident that the insight used would lead to the desired objective? That's the level of confidence. Did you have enough information that you felt confident about? All of these things kind of go into this. See, the next step, remember, is plan impact. And the first step is the context. I think this is all about the context, because once you have the context, then you're going to be able to create some scenarios. You see, what I'm talking about in this little section here is I'm applying the concept from Tom's checklist state assumptions to answer this question. How do you resolve a difference between expectations and reality? What does it mean to resolve a difference between expectations and reality? What I'm talking about is, what do you want to do? And you're going to get some kind of outcome. And what you might find out is that the plan that you created, the impact that you thought you were going to get when you performed the action, is not actually, the outcome that I got was not actually the impact that I had hoped for in the plan. And so all of that information from this box then goes into the context where you're going to create some scenarios for the next round. And that's why this thing is called the Endeavor cycle, is because we're going through cycles. And every time you go around the cycle, you're going to change your assumptions a little bit because you're going to get more information from the outcomes. All right, so here you go. That's the
more energy, more energy, more footwork, more footwork, more footwork, more passion, more energy.
All right, so this is the end of this video. In the next couple of videos, what we're going to do is on Saturday, I'm going to go into this concept, the 4 management coaching dimensions, because obviously what you can see here is that these are different kinds of decisions. Each level of the organization is going to be making different types of decisions. We're going to go deeper into that. And then next week, when I do the half-baked idea on Tuesday, I'm going to make a new video about the role of a coach. And I'm going to talk about this little framework here for coaching and how you can help people and how you can understand how to help people. Thank you for joining me here at Space Between Ideas, and we will catch you next time.